So if you don't know about Recovery Corps, it is an awesome program, kind of like the Peace Corps, kind of like AmeriCorps, where they allow people to get involved in this industry and learn how to be recovery coaches or recovery navigators, that sort of thing. And they provide that option to organizations like mine at no charge so that we can beef up our staff. And here to tell you about it is Cheryl LaRue.
Sorry guys, I might have to. I tell you, I can't tell you how grateful I am and honored to be here and speak. You know, I think back about how I started in the field, and I lost my papa actually at 17 to alcoholism, and that just changed my whole trajectory of my life. My youngest son actually just celebrated 14 years in recovery. Nothing like getting that call in the middle of the night, your son's at the emergency room unresponsive because he's overdosed. I can't tell you, and I know many of you understand that, but now he's married and has 2 babies, just had their second one actually just 4 months ago. So I get it, I'm an ally, I'm an advocate, I will always fight for our people, and this being a part of Ampact and Recovery Corps is just another avenue that I've been taken into. You know, I look back and I see Jake standing back there, and last year we had a whole panel here just listening. You know, you talk to people, you're on Zoom meetings with folks, but then when you get to actually see our people in person, because we're actually in 26 sites this year across the whole state. So just to see everybody in person and hear their story and to feel their genuineness, their passion, it's like, yes, this is why we do what we do. And we all are here because we love what we do, and we're here to help those around us that struggle or are looking to a path to be in this field, and that's what we're about. We actually started in 21, and we were at 12 sites at that point, and I think we only had like 17 recovery navigators and project coordinators. And now this year, just in 24, we're up to 26 sites, and we are bringing on 45 recovery navigators and project coordinators across the state. So it's just amazing. And I think about like Cheryl, who volunteers me to do things. I don't know if you guys will go through this. And actually, I didn't even know I was going to do this piece until Liz tells me, my executive director, oh, you're in one of the opening speeches. I'm like, huh? I'm like, here we go again, Gerald, you know, but that's all right. He's my bud, so I just love what he represents. I love what all of our agencies represent. So really, we focus on bringing those folks in for that recovery navigator position. If they've had at least 1 year of lived experience, we want them to apply. We want to bring them on. We train them all through, actually, their service year. So they are trained through Heartland College, and it's all of the educational needs that they're required to have to head towards getting that certification. So, and we have got a ton. Mike, you've got a ton of your staff now. They were Recovery Corps. You know, we've just, I can't even count. I mean, we haven't actually yet counted up how many folks are now employed at their sites after their first term. And we've got folks that are coming back, this is our first time, their 4th term, because our recovery navigators and project coordinators can serve up to 4 terms. So again, those are 11-month terms. We take care of the education, the training. They are supervised by somebody that is at that site that can supervise them. And also we have Leanne Corson and Abby Hartman. They supervise on our end for our program. So it's that surrounding, that wraparound support to help train our folks and get them on that career path, hopefully into the field. And the other position we have is a project coordinator, and they actually are brought on to build capacity. And Gerald, actually, they have a project coordinator this year as well. So it's like you can, as an agency, look at maybe the possible gaps that are at your agency, and you might not have the staffing to make those visions possible. And that's why we want the project coordinators to be at your agencies, or you guys will identify that is a good fit for you. So we're going to be out there. Actually, we have a table today, so I know it was crazy. I went to the reception last night, and within probably 10 minutes, I had 2 more connections that need it. And it's crazy because I do attend so many meetings across the state because I want to know what's going on. I want to get involved with communities. I want us to go where we're needed, and it's happening. So I just love to hear people's stories, hear their needs. 5. And so, you know, you were 1. So, and it's areas that, you know, we really have to get into those rural areas. That need is so great. I lived in Wisconsin for 19 years and then moved back to take care of my folks, and just hearing everything that's happening here and hearing the needs, I really knew I was where I was supposed to be. And now, connection after connection after connection, and being able to be in an area for 10 minutes last night, and they're like, oh my gosh, we need you. Well, that's why we're here. So, please don't hesitate to stop out at our table and get some information. We are a division of AmeriCorps, actually, so we just really want to help people and get in those communities and make a difference. And just in the 3.5 years, I can't believe the difference that our navigators and our project coordinators have made. So I think this past year, we had just 20 navigators, and they actually saw 495 people just by themselves. Recovery capital was increased to 70%. I mean, that's just an example, you guys. So they're making a difference. So I thank you all. Oh, we have 25. Thank you, Liz, for that little stat. We actually have 25 people since we started that are now serving in the field. So 1 makes a difference, you guys. So think about that, 25 and how many lives they're touching. So please feel free to talk to us, get some information from me and Liz, and very honored, my friend, that you put me up here and had us be a part of this wonderful, wonderful, it's my favorite actually, you know, but don't tell anybody, this event. Thank you, everybody.
All right, guys, normally I would like jibber jabber in between, but we're running a little late because I'm running late. That's what I do. Across the hall from us, there's another room about half this size, and there's a AA service workshop going on in there, which is amazing. Anybody in 12-step knows that the traditions like make it so that AA avoids recovery community organizations like we got the plague, right? And the district and area here have chosen to try to start to blend in with us. And so those people will be over there. They have said if you want to wander in and see what they're doing, do so. They'll probably wander over our way. But I think it's really cool that they're there. And so we're just chopping this away a little bit at a time. But like in 10 years, we're going to come, all of DeKalb is going to be like recovery weekend, right? Because you guys started it, right? Yeah. Let's do it. So I get to meet like people from all over the country that I just, like I go and you know how you hear those recovery stories and you're like, oh, that's cool. Well, I get to hear it from all over the country. I'm out looking for them. And one of them I found in Ohio. I went to a conference and I met a young lady who works for one of my heroes, Stephanie Robinson, at a Hope Recovery Community in Medina, Ohio. And you will hear more about their recovery farm and some of the things they're doing. But when Sam told me her story, I was like, you've got to come tell it to my friends. So Samantha Evans, can you come talk to me?
Hello, everyone, and good morning. It's a beautiful day for recovery, is it not?
Yes. Let's go.
Yes, gosh, I'm so grateful to be here today. My name is Sam Evans. I'm from Medina, Ohio, and I am a person in long-term recovery from substance use disorder. And for me, that means that I have not found it necessary to use drugs or alcohol in over 6 years. Thank you. You know, I might feel a little emotional today because I've been doing a lot of reflecting on my life, like the past 6 months, right? And I'm reaching a point in adulthood and in recoveryhood, right? Where I'm it's all starting to come full circle, right? And I started my recovery journey when I was 23 years old. This was 11 years ago. So I have 6 years now, right? But it took me a couple tries, right? And I was 23 years old. I was a heroin user, and heroin took me down very quickly, very quickly. And thank God, right? Thank God. But I laugh because it was almost 11 years ago to the day, almost, right? I was about to hop in a car with my friend, and she was gonna drop me off at the train station in Chicago. And yesterday I flew into Chicago airport, right? And for me, that's just it's so weird because I was gonna just show up in Chicago and figure it out, right? And now I'm well, now I'm showing up in Chicago, and then I'm hopping in an Uber and coming out here, and I'm speaking about recovery, right? And I had a plan to go to Chicago, right? But that plan didn't work out, thank God. But it worked out, right? Because here I am, and I just feel so taken back by the way God works in my life, right? The way that recovery has just shown up in my life and provided these unexpected opportunity for me, right? And it's just profound, and there's no word for it, right? I just have to sit back in awe. So with all of that being said, I'm just so grateful to be here, and I'm just so thankful for Gerald and connection and just getting to meet people and all of the opportunity that has brought me here today. But you guys are here, kind of to hear a little bit about my story, right? And so we'll talk about that. Gosh, I don't even know where to start, man. It's you forget. People are what's your favorite color? And you forget colors exist. That's kind of how I feel right now. My parents, I guess, we'll just start here, right? My parents divorced when I was a little kid. I was 5, 6 years old. My dad found recovery right before I was born. So my whole life I have known for my father to be a person in recovery. My mother, on the other hand, really, really struggles with this disease. And I'm currently really watching my mother die a slow death from alcoholism. And it's horrific. It's horrible to watch. She's got cancer and all of these other things, and it's hard, right? And it's heavy. So when my parents divorced, right, my dad in recovery went to court, and my mom, not in recovery because of her disease, didn't go to court. So my dad got full custody of me, and my dad raised me. And I'm so grateful for that because my dad raised me in a house that was sober and it was safe, and I had good morals and good values, and he provided and he worked hard, and my dad is a total rock star and incredible human being, right? And he really truly believed that it was in my best interest for me to visit with my mom. Even though she had no legal rights to me, he thought his little 6-year-old daughter should visit with his mom, and her mother should be a part of her life, right? And so I would visit with my mom on the weekends, but see, my mom's house, it was full of drugs, alcohol, domestic violence, child abuse, sex work, right? And I saw all of that at my mom's house, right? My sister was raped by one of my mother's Johns, right? In the same bedroom that we shared, right? And so these were things that I saw, and my mom would say, Sammy, don't tell your dad that the cops were here this weekend. You need to lie to him for me. Because if you tell him, he won't let me see you anymore. And so the good daughter I was, the people-pleasing daughter that I was, right? I lied for my mom, and I learned these skills, right? Because I call them skills because they were skills for me when I got into active addiction. That's what kept me from dying, right? That's what kept me safe, right? So I learned how to lie, I learned how to cheat, I learned how to manipulate and use people and get what I wanted to survive, right? At 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, right? Didn't know it at the time, but it would keep me alive later in my adult life. So, I come from this long line of people who struggle with substance use disorder, right? Dad goes to AA meetings, mom is a severe alcoholic, sister, is a drug addict, right? And I would stand back as a kid and I would look at my family and I'm like, I don't want to be like any of them. I don't want to go to AA meetings and I don't want to, do any of this. But I did have this like calling inside of me, right? I wanted to help people like them. Somehow, I just knew it. I remember being 10 years old and saying I want to be a psychiatrist and work in prisons and help people specifically who are addicted to drugs. I remember that day where I made that choice. And it's not quite what I do today, but it's pretty close. I'm not a psychiatrist, and I don't want to be. But, like I said, recovery and God, works in my life and provides, right? So, anyways, so I looked at my family and I said, I don't want to be like any of them. I'm going to do it differently. And so that, kept me away from picking up drugs or alcohol for a pretty long time. And I was 15 years old the first time I drank. Around the same time, that's when I started smoking weed. About a year later, that's when I started using prescription pills, acid, ecstasy, right? I progressed really, really quickly because there is something innately in me that's let's do bad stuff. Let's just do it, I just have a desire for more, whatever it is, if it feels good, right? And to be honest, my first true addiction is attention from men. Before I ever picked up a drink or a drug, right? When I hit puberty and all of a sudden boys paid attention to me, that was my first addiction. I loved that, right? But I love bad boys. Let's be honest, right? And so bad boys do bad things, and I get curious, right? Because unlike Dare, who told me that peer pressure, everybody's gonna make you do drugs. Nobody ever made me do anything. I made a choice. I hung out with people who did these things. I watched them and was oh, well, they're smoking weed and they're not dying. They're getting drunk and they're not dying. And so I decided well, I can do that and not die, right? And that's how every time I tried a new substance, that is how it progressed for me, right? Eventually, the party is more important to me than my education, right? And I do graduate high school, I go to Youngstown State, I complete my freshman year there, but they're you can't come back. And I was I don't want to, because they were the problem, not me. It wasn't the fact that I didn't go to class and I was learning how to, sell and consume drugs and not go to school for graphic design like I had signed up for, right? And everybody was the problem except me, and everything continued to progress up until I was 23 years old, and I just hit consequences started to happen because I never faced any true consequences, right? And if I don't have a consequence, I'm gonna keep going, right? If you don't catch me, even if you catch me and I don't get in serious trouble, I'm gonna keep going. I'm just gonna keep doing that, But then I started to get some serious consequences. In my recovery journey, I have never been arrested. I did not go to treatment. I have not lived in recovery housing. I don't have that recovery lived experience of those things, right? And truthfully, I probably should have gone to detox and stuff, right? I probably should do that. Those weren't options that were presented to me when I first got into recovery. But for me, I was so desperate to just die. That's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to live. Going to jail was going to give me street credit. I wasn't afraid of that, right? And I just didn't have a desire to live. But these consequences, man, I just did not like these consequences. And I continued to I don't know, I made a decision, right? And I was like, this is where my journey is gonna start. And so that was when I was 23 years old, back in 2013. And that's where my recovery journey started, right? My dad drugged me to my first AA meeting, and I half-heartedly kind of did what I was supposed to, right? Like I was into it, but I was like, yeah, you guys got a lot of rules, and I don't really like this. Like, you told me I can't have a boyfriend, and like, I really like boys, like, you know, and like, you told me to like move out on my own, but like, I'm tired of living with my grandma, like, you know, and so I went and I did all these things that they were like, you probably shouldn't do that. And I was like, I'm different, I'll do it my way, thank you. And so what I did really was I met a guy who lived in recovery housing. He overdosed and almost died inside of that recovery house, and he was on probation, so he went to jail for 30 days, and I held him down because I'm a good woman, right? I put money on his books, and while he was in jail, I found out I was pregnant, and I was like 3 or 4 months sober, right? And I gave him a choice. I said, hey man, like, here's what you can get out and you can get right, or you can get out and get gone, basically. And he got out and he got right, and we had my first son, and life was good, right? Life was so good. I was like, how do I screw this up? How do I screw this up? You know, and I did, and I chose to pick up again, and I continued a pattern of this, right? And eventually my second son was born, but right before he was born, the day before he was born, my sister passed away from an overdose in Louisville, Kentucky, with a fiance. She was dead for over 10 hours before he called the ambulance for her, right? 10 hours. And he loved her though. They were gonna get married. She was dead for 10 hours. She died the day before my youngest son was born. And at her funeral, she has 2 children who never got to know her because of this disease, right? This disease robbed 2 children of knowing a mother, right? It's not my sister's fault, it's the disease. My sister wasn't the problem. She was an incredible human being. Give the shirt off her back for anybody in this room, right? But it's the disease. And so 2 children stood at her casket and cried over her, right? The most heartbreaking thing. And you guys probably seen it in here. Heartbreaking. And so at that funeral, my kid's father, his name was Kyle, he stood there and I was like, Kyle, promise me you never will do this to me. Do not do this to me and our kids. And he said, Sammy, I promise I will never do this to you. And I said, okay. A year and a half later, this brings us to July 18th of 2018, which is my recovery date. Him and I had separated, things didn't work out. We were using together, it wasn't working out. We had separated and I was I was doing my thing, he was doing his thing. We separated. I go to pick the kids up from his house and I walk in. And his sister comes down the stairs and she's sobbing. And my first thought is what happened to my kids? Kids are okay, you need to go talk to my mom, is what she says to me. And his mom walks around the corner and she's sobbing. And I'm like, what is going on? Where are my kids? What's happening? And she said, Sammy, Kyle overdosed. And I looked at her and I was like, what do you mean he overdosed? Because he had done this before and he survived, and it was, you know, like, and I like looked at her and she kind of like, she couldn't get the words out, you know, and I said, oh my God, is he dead? She said yes. And immediately, that gut punch, right? You fall to your knees, and I couldn't hear and I couldn't see, and the only thing I could say was, what about my babies? He promised me a year and a half before, he promised me, right? And I don't know, man, it was like in that day, it was like, I had plans to use that night. I really did, you know? And I called my sister, and I was just like, she said, Sammy, you no longer have the luxury to relapse anymore. You have 2 kids who depend on you, they have nobody but you. And I was like, wow. And it was profound, and it changed my perspective on things, and I made a decision. I said, I'm not doing this anymore, I've got to change my life. Something's got to change. And so I did, and so I jumped back on this recovery path, you know. And in the process of like the separation of him and I, right, I meet this tall red flag, and with neck tattoos and all the things, right? And it was not good, and it wasn't good. It was a very like, you know, domestic violence type situation, and you know, he was mad at me because I was sad that my kid's dad died, right? Like, that's the kind of person I was with, right? And So anyway, but I made a decision. I'm like, I'm getting right, I'm getting back on the path of recovery and all this stuff. So July 18th, 2018 is my recovery date today. All mind and mood altering substances and all my medication is taken as prescribed, right? And I make a decision and gosh, it was so hard. I was so traumatized, right? And but people kept checking in on me, right? Like Stephanie, right? She's sitting here today, and she would call and check in on me, and hey, how are you doing? And I'm like, my life is terrible, and it sucks, and I hate it, and I don't know why I got myself in this situation again, right? She's like, it's okay, you can get through it, right? And she took my hand and she walked with me on this journey, and then a couple months into, after Kyle died and I'm new into recovery and I'm finally going back to meetings and stuff, she calls me and she goes, will you meet me at a McDonald's? I'd like to talk to you about something. And I'm like, that's kind of scary sometimes because you're like, oh shit, right? This can go either way. And so I'm like, yeah, I'll meet you. And the boyfriend at the time, he was like, he did not love that. And because he knew that I was getting better and he was staying sick. And he knew that this conversation was not good for the relationship. And it wasn't. Thank God. But I went to this McDonald's and I sat down with Stephanie and I had my youngest son with me and she had her daughter with her and they were playing and she starts talking to me about RCOs and peer support and all of these other things, right? And she's like, Sam, we have worked together in this space before doing this type of work. And I know that life has been hard and I know that you have made mistakes and was not afraid to call it out and own it, right? And she said, but I think you can do it again and I want you to do this with me, right? Even though everyone else was telling her, no, don't give Sam a second chance. You're crazy. Don't give that girl. She's a train wreck. And they were right. I was a train wreck. But she believed in me. She saw something in me, right? And so I left that. I was like, sign me up. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm in. Let's do it, right? I'm like, I'm here for it. Because at 10 years old, I knew I wanted to do this work. I tried to get out of it. I keep getting called back, right? And so I came home and I told the boyfriend about how great this conversation was, and he said, you'll never be able to do any of that. You'll never amount to anything. And I just want to say, look at me now.
Oh, yeah.
And so I got rid of him. Right? And that was the start of it. And all because somebody believed in me. Somebody gave me a second chance. And I left that conversation for the first time in probably 2 years, right? And especially since Kyle had died, that I had hope, right? I believed that my life could actually change for the better because I knew recovery worked. And I knew that if I just did the next right thing, one day at a time, and followed suggestions, and just tried to be decent every single day, that it would get better, right? And that was the first time that I had hope. And I left there and my life did get better. It did get better, and I kept working, and I put my head down, and I stayed strong through the things, and I made mistakes, and I walked through failure, right? With my head held high. With ownership that I have messed up and it's okay, right? Gosh, I can do that today and it's all because of recovery, right? And so the journey has brought me to I work for Hope Recovery Community and you guys are gonna learn so much about all the cool stuff that we do there, right? And I'm a peer supporter and I get to see people come in, people like me, women like me, come in and they don't know what to do. Right? And they're hopeless and stuff. And they just want to get better, right? And I get to see that change happen in them, right? I get to empower them, right? I'm the Ohio affiliate director for the National Peer Recovery Alliance. I'm a director of something. I am covered in tattoos. I cuss a whole lot. I am not actually a very professional-ish kind of broad. I'm gonna be real honest with you guys. I'm not, but I'm on these stages, and that's how I met Cheryl, right? And that's why I'm here today, and that's because opportunity was presented to me, right? In Medina, we talk about recovery equals willingness plus opportunity. You have to meet willingness with opportunity, right? And so with that, I am going to wrap up. I just want to say thank you for being here today. All of you are miracles. All of you are just so beautiful, and I'm just so grateful. Thank you so much.